Welcome to the Word Weaver podcast, a literary place in cyberspace where I share tangible tips, tricks, and words of wisdom to help you achieve your dream of writing a book. I'm your host, Louise Johnson, a writer and the author of Behind the Red Door. Let's dive into today's chapter. Hello, welcome back to the Word Weaver podcast. I'm your host, Louise Claire Johnson, and I am coming to you live from Lisbon, Portugal, Lisboa. Yes, I am here. This shows my dedication to the Word Weaver. I packed my microphone. It was actually hilarious going through security. I knew that I needed to record a podcast while I was away. I am dedicated to these weekly episodes, and this week is a solo. Next week, I have a really exciting author coming, so her episode is all ready and edited to go. Anyway, I was going through security and my backpack got pulled over. She goes, "Do you have a curling iron or a hair straightener in here?" And I said, "No, I didn't bring one on this trip." I was like, "What could it be?" I completely forgot that I put this microphone in there. And I was like, "No, I didn't bring those." And then she kind of gave me this look as though like, "Oh, then I know what it is." I still wasn't cluing in. This shows how kind of like naive I can be sometimes. And she unzips my backpack and pulls out this microphone. And she goes, "What is this?" I knew immediately what she was thinking. And I go, "Oh, it's a USB microphone. I have a podcast. I'm recording a podcast episode there." She did not care. She's like, "Okay, sure." Did not believe me whatsoever that this was a microphone. It's the blue Snowball microphone, has a giant white orb at the top of the kickstand that I'm currently holding. And yeah, she definitely didn't believe me that it was a microphone. She thought it was some sort of sex toy. Absolutely. Yeah, that was my experience going through security. Anyway, so I'm here in Lisbon. I am so excited. I've never been to Lisbon before. And so far, I am super, super impressed. I love this city. I already can tell it's a place I want to come back to. The vibes are high. The energy is good currently. We did take a red eye. So I'm here with my husband and my baby, but I'm also here to check out some bookstores. There are 23 bookstores in Lisbon alone on my list that I want to check out. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be getting to all of them, but I have a couple highlighted that I absolutely want to get to. The next one I'm going to, as soon as I finish recording this podcast, is the world's oldest operating bookshop. Yes, it's called Livreira Bertrand. It's in the Chiado neighborhood. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing all of that correctly, but I am so excited. So, on this little trip, I'll be going to the world's oldest, as well as one of the world's smallest bookshops, both here in Lisbon. I'm also going to a few in a week or so when we go to Spain. So, a lot of exciting bookshops on this trip. And I actually wanted to talk in this episode about Bookshop Bucket List. I realized I have never talked about it on the Word Weaver. I've shared it here and there on my Instagram, but I'll get to that in a minute. So this trip is part leisure, part business. It is my son. He is 5 months old. It is his first international trip. He had his first flight to Halifax when he was really, really young. So that was technically his first flight. So this is his second flight, but I really count this as kind of his big first trip. We did a red eye. He was an angel. He slept the entire way. We were lucky enough to get one of the bulkhead seating, and we put him in his little Snuggle Me in this baby sleeping bag on the floor. We made sure that nobody stepped on him. So we didn't sleep at all the entire time. He was an angel, slept the whole flight. So we were really, really exhausted when we got off the plane yesterday, and we couldn't check into our hotel yet. So baby in tow, we just got our bearings in our neighborhood, walked around, got some lunch. We went to the Time Out Market, Lisboa. If you've ever been here, it is amazing. It's all these different food stands. They're known for their seafood here, so we tried the codfish. It was amazing. We also went to a coffee shop. I went to a couple bookstores that I will be sharing soon on Bookshop Bucket List, and then an outdoor market. We're staying in this beautiful neighborhood right at the base of a church, and in the courtyard of the church, they have this outdoor market. The shopping here is so good. I'm really gonna have to hold myself back from not buying too many clothes, jewelry. I loved all of the sweaters. I feel like it's very my aesthetic. I don't even know how to describe my style, but I don't know, everything I've seen here clothing wise is exactly what I want to wear. So I might have to buy a couple things and books, of course. I'm really trying just to get at least one at the bookstores that I visit, but I can't bring home 23 books. So we will see. Maybe I'll just get a bookmark or something smaller. And of course, I'll be stamping my bookshop bucket list passport. I'll get to that again, explain everything that I'm talking about here and how it came to be. And then we found another outdoor market at the top of a hill with a beautiful view of the city. I got a vino verde. They're known for their sangria here, but I've heard that instead of ordering the sangria, you should order Tento de Veranos. Again, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but that's kind of very similar to sangria, but they don't charge you the tourist prices for it. So, had some of that. Jeff got one of their local draft beers. It's called Super Bock. I had some as well. It was delicious. So, yeah, we just kind of explored, ate here and there. And by the time we could finally check into our hotel, we were exhausted pushing the stroller up and down the cobblestone hills. Picture kind of San Francisco with these steep hills, but old cobblestones. It was a feat. And normally we are just going to be carrying Henrik around in the baby carrier. But because we couldn't check in, we had all of this bulky stuff. Anyway, we were exhausted, and then we just got some takeout Indian food from another place that was super highly recommended. So we got the takeout food, brought it back to our hotel, and then just completely crashed and woke up fresh this morning. Jeff and Henrik are off. They're just grabbing some coffees. Here in Europe, the coffees are a lot smaller, so they're getting Americanos, but they still kind of look like little espresso shots. So they're picking up that while I record this podcast really quickly. Then we're going to go explore. And then my cousin, his wife, and their baby Felix are arriving. So we're going to start exploring. And my sister arrives tomorrow. So that's why I say part business, part pleasure. And eventually we're going to go to the Algarve region, and then we're going to splinter off. And Jeff, Henrik, and I are going to continue on to Spain. So very, very excited. And I'm happy that I'm also able to include some bookshop bucket list research here. And I say research because this is an exclusive teaser, but Bookshop Bucket List is being shopped around currently as a docu-series. So I can't say too much more right now. I don't have a lot that I am able to share, just that it would be a docu-series, 8 episodes. I would be the host. So picture kind of Anthony Bourdain's The Layover, if you've ever seen that, meets Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine. So before we fly on location for the 8 episodes to different cities around the world, I am doing a little bit of research, a little bit of intel. There's one really famous bookstore in Porto, which was the inspiration for J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter. So Porto is north of Lisbon, but this city itself is this hidden literary mecca. It is so impressive. Like I said, there's the world's oldest operating bookshop, also one of the world's smallest bookshops here. There's this other bookstore called L'Air de Vegar that's in the LX factory, one of the largest bookstores in the world. I mean, they're really going for these Guinness World Book of Records, but there's also these hidden little gems on every corner, and they have English and Portuguese books, Spanish, a real mix, but really it's the booksellers and their dedication to continuing on the tradition of having operating bookstores in this city that contributes to it being a paradise or a utopia for bibliophiles like myself. So that in a nutshell is kind of what I'm doing here in Portugal for the time being. We are staying at one of the coolest hotels I've stayed at, and I cannot take credit. Jeff, my husband, found this place. So not only while I'm here do I get to check out some of the world's coolest bookshops, I'm also staying in a former library. This truly is my kind of dream trip. I'm so excited to be here. So we are staying at this hotel. I'm sorry in advance if I butcher the name, but I believe it's called the Almeria Ex Edificio. And Ex Edificio, it translates to the Book of. And it's kind of unassuming when you see this hotel from the street. It blends into all of the other buildings, except it has the most exquisite mosaic tile on the whole exterior. And Portugal is known for their tile work, their ceramics. So stunning, stunning, but it kind of just blends in. It kind of looks like the exterior of a townhouse, but is a former library, and there are 5 floors, 17 different apartments. So instead of a traditional hotel room, there are 2 to 4 apartments on each floor, and each of them is dedicated to a different Portuguese author, which is so cool. So there are old books everywhere. The artwork throughout uses pages from these old vintage novels. It is just so, so cool. And it's been amazing having our own kitchen. We have the bedroom. And the funny thing is, I cannot take credit for finding this place. Jeff found it. He didn't even realize that it was a book hotel and a former library. But when we discovered that, he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I did. I'll take credit for that," because he knows how much I love this kind of stuff. I go crazy and nerd out, and it is honestly the coolest place I've ever stayed. Love that it's an apartment, and they are so great when you're traveling with kids here. I had no idea what to expect. They set up a full crib, they call it a cot here, for Henrik, for the baby, with his own linens. They put a little stuffed animal on his pillow. They had baby food ready. I mean, he only drinks milk right now. He can't actually have real food yet. But they put out all this baby food, which they replenish every day. And in the bathroom, they had a baby bathtub for him, which is incredible because that's something that's super bulky that we couldn't travel with. So the fact that we're able to continue somewhat his routine, even though his sleep schedule is all over the place now, but we can still have a bath and we didn't have to bring all of this stuff. They also have a mini washing machine and detergent, so we can do a little laundry here. Just every single thing you could think of. They deliver fresh bread to your room every morning, and they have the fridge stocked with fresh milk, eggs, meats and cheeses, like little breakfast charcuterie, yogurt, fresh granola. And then they have little Nespresso pods. They don't do full cups of coffee here. It's something to be savored and sipped. They don't like these large American portions, as they say. So, yeah, unreal place, super impressed. And that's where we're staying, and just adds to the whole bookish atmosphere. So, for as long as I can remember, I have had a handwritten list of all of the bookshops around the world that I want to visit someday. Essentially, my own bookshop bucket list. I've had that written probably since grade 6. And then I just keep adding to it as I find out about different bookshops around the world that I want to check out. Also, whenever I'm traveling to a new city, if I'm lucky enough when I was younger to go with my family, when I was living in Switzerland, or when I was living in New York alone, and now that I'm married, being able to travel with my husband, and now with my baby, anytime I am fortunate enough to go on a trip to a new city, it could be anywhere around the world, it could be in Canada, it could be in the US. The first thing that I do is research all of the bookshops within the vicinity and then within that town or city. And then I printed out old school on my itinerary. So a lot of people will research the best local restaurants or bars or coffee shops. And I definitely do that as well. But the very first thing that I do is check out the bookshops. What can I explore around the world? So the idea for Bookshop Bucket List has been percolating for a really long time. And I was checking these places off on my own list. And I just thought, oh, how cool would it be to have my own passport where I can check off or stamp every bookshop that I've been to? Now, I knew it would be an impossible feat to get every bookstore in the world aligned with having a specific stamp for me to stamp, but so I decided to create my own passport. So that was the first prototype. I created my own little passport, and at every bookshop, I would collect business cards, bookmarks, stickers. They often sell or give away free stickers at the cash, and I would use colored markers, and I would just keep track of the bookstores that I was visiting, and the number of bookstores started adding up. And I started getting really curious of how many bookshops are there around the world that I can eventually check out. And it's in the thousands. I set a goal for myself last year on my birthday that I wanted to visit 100 bookshops in 1 year. I'm an author. I like a deadline. I like having a ticking clock, so to speak, where there's a countdown, there's an urgency, something to keep me accountable and on track. So, really, kind of the 1 year was arbitrary, but 100 bookshops I thought was doable, but was also a challenge. So then this idea expanded to I want to share this with other people and encourage them and inspire them to check out the bookstores in their own backyard. And then COVID hit, and a lot of the independent bookstores that I had on my list around the world shuttered and haven't been able to reopen since. And not to be dramatic, but that just devastated me to see these hardworking independent booksellers. A lot of them are generational, they've been passed down from family member to family member through the years, and the history that these buildings, the beautiful architecture, house in themselves, the stories that these booksellers can tell, that just all kind of got lost. And it made me really sad to think that with the influx of AI and the way that people consume information now, the idea of sitting down and reading a book is hard for a lot of people. We don't have the same attention spans in our attention economy. We have e-readers and audiobooks now. It's different ways to absorb information, but the tangible, physical, hardcover books and the way that you get them through these booksellers are at risk of being lost. So I thought if I started sharing my bookshop bucket list, it might be a way to celebrate these bookstores that are on the verge of extinction and encourage people to go shop local, support their independent booksellers and these people that are just dedicating their lives to books. And the publishing industry, there's so many different cogs in that wheel. Being an author, being a writer, I am just one little small cog creating the book, but then there's a whole team of publishers, designers creating that package, that product that eventually makes its way to the booksellers, to the shelf or the table in that store, and then home to a reader on their coffee table or their own personal library. And the booksellers are such a vital, important cog in that wheel. And if we lose them, if the only way you can buy books is through Amazon or on your Kindle or Kobo, it just feels to me like we would be losing an important part of humanity. I coined this term that I call book bathing, and it's similar to the Japanese art of forest bathing, where just the idea of walking into a bookstore, the calming, therapeutic feeling of weaving amongst the stacks, the smell of old books, speaking to this bookseller. There's something so pure and wholesome about book bathing, about walking into a bookstore or a library and being surrounded by all of these little artifacts from history, especially in our chaotic, crazy world. We're so online, we're so tethered to our phones and our computers, and the nostalgia of being in a bookstore immediately calms your nervous system. And there are studies that have been done that shows we're really constantly in a state of fight or flight, and going into a bookstore, immersing yourself in books puts you back into your parasympathetic nervous system, essentially the opposite of fight or flight. You feel calm, peaceful, at home. Your brain is able to calibrate at an operational level again. You're able to think more clearly. It reduces your cortisol levels, your stress hormone. Bookstores and libraries are also one of the few remaining community hubs that are free to go into for anyone and everyone to walk through. And not to mention the act of browsing, perusing in person is so different from the experience of book shopping online because you're using all five of your senses. Your sight, the visual eye candy of looking at all these beautiful spines, the smell of old books, worn leather, being able to physically pull a book off the shelf, open its cover jacket, feel the page beneath your hands. It's a whole sensory experience that is at risk of being lost. So all that to say is I was really inspired to start Bookshop Bucket List as a way of highlighting these hidden gems around the world in my own backyard, starting with Toronto. There are over 50 bookstores in Toronto, and then expanding to different cities around the globe, highlighting these booksellers, the literati, whose life mission is to keep the magic of books alive, highlight the architecture of these historic buildings, and really just share this bookish magic with everyone around me. And I hope you can feel, even the way I'm talking about it, how special and important bookstores are and how accessible they are for everyone. You can go to anywhere in the world and find a bookstore. You can't say that about many places. It's just this communal hub, and I feel so passionate about it. And I'm really excited that hopefully we're going to be able to bring it to screen so you're able to see it in a TV show so we can reach even more people. I'll do a whole other episode as I have more information for you on when we're starting to film and when you can see that online. But I'm just happy I can play a little tiny pinprick of a part to encourage or inspire people to discover the global literary landscape that is in peril of extinction. So to come full circle, I did succeed in visiting 100 bookshops in less than a year, actually. 50 of them were in Toronto. I didn't even realize my own city had 50 incredible bookstores, and I will slowly be trickling those out on bookshopbucketlist.com, which is the main hub. If you go anywhere, go to that website. Look at it on your computer versus your phone. I think it looks so much better on a desktop. So go to bookshopbucketlist.com. You can see all of the bookshops, the different maps that I have. I also sell my Bookshop Bucket List passport there. It's only $18 and this flat fee of shipping around the world for $5, I think it is. I am eventually going to be releasing a very limited edition number of Bookshop Bucket List passport kits. So I created my own stamp that I use in my passport to stamp each time I go to a bookshop, and I write down the date, the name of the bookstore, and then I add my little stickers and everything. That's why the pages of the passport are blank. So you can have fun and get creative however you want to keep track. So you can buy just the passport, but eventually I'm going to release this kit that will include a custom stamp as well as a black ink pad. I'm just trying to figure out how I can get these made. I'm doing it all myself. I do all of the back end production creation. I do the shipping, handling, everything. So it's a very, very small operation, but I just wanted to find a way to get these into the hands of readers and bibliophiles who really, really cherish it and want to do their own bookshop bucket list as well. I will eventually have lists and downloadable PDFs that you can get. I'm working on all of that. In the middle of this, I found out I was pregnant and had a baby earlier than expected. So my whole plan got a little bit derailed, but we're getting back on track now. And I'm just continuing on with Bookshop Bucket List. There's no ticking clock anymore. I am just continuing on my mission to visit every quirky bookshop and library on my literary list for the rest of time. And I will be sharing those on the website, bookshopbucketlist.com, at Bookshop Bucket List on Instagram, and then also on TikTok. It's doing randomly really well on TikTok. So I create these little reels. I also take photos. I love still photography. I know somebody told me just do the reels, just do the video footage. And I'm like, no, I love taking photos of bookstores. I want those for myself. So photos, videos, all of that content creation, the visual imagery takes a lot of back end work to do. So just know that I am exploring these bookshops. I'm checking them off my own list, and then it takes me a little time to release them out onto bookshopbucketlist.com and everything. So that is coming. And I am taking a mini pause from the Toronto bookshops to do Lisbon, Portugal. I'll do Spain, then London, England. My sister lives there. And then I also got to visit Hay on Wye in Wales right before I gave birth. So I have all of that content to release. And Hay on Wye, Wales. I could probably do a whole other podcast episode. I won't. It's home to the Hay Literary Festival, if you are familiar. This whole town in Wales was number one on my list. It is the world's first book town. They have more bookshops per square footage or something than people in the town. I mean, that stat doesn't make sense, but essentially in this little small medieval town, they have a bookshop at every turn. And it's the most beautiful literary place. It's kind of hard to get to. And I was so excited that I was able to check that off my list. So many incredible bookstores to come from Hay on Wye. And you can look it up in advance, the world's first book town. Anyway, I'm just so excited to continue sharing the bookish magic with all of you. Check out Bookshop Bucket List, get your own passport if you're interested, or you can wait until I release the passport kit if you would like to get your own custom stamp as well as the ink pad. Also, you could just probably create your own. I'm not trying to force anything on you here. I just wanted to create something that I use myself. And yeah, happy reading, happy writing, happy book shopping, happy life. And I'll just leave you with this one quote that I found about book shopping and why it's so important to maintain these bookstores so they don't get lost in the cracks of history. I don't have an attribution. I'm not sure who said this quote, but I just love it. And it's, isn't the act of discovery, finding the unlooked for, one of life's greatest pleasures? I couldn't agree more. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, follow the podcast, share the episodes on social media with your family and friends. It really helps more people find out about the Word Weaver. Until next time.